Contact echoes. The silence of the dead world below was deafening. Vakes stood before the viewport of the Velikthon, staring down at the charred bones of humanity's final outpost. Ashen structures lay crumbled under a gray sky. Earth's sun still burned, indifferent to what had unfolded beneath it. To most Xerilith, this was a statistical closure, the end of a failed experiment. Another volatile species marked and removed from the equation. But to Vakes, it was something else off-pattern. The data didn't align. The human transmissions collected before their extinction pulsed with anomalies. Their final days had not been consumed by panic or surrender, but by expression. Music, laughter, poems sent into the void as missiles rained down. Songs were sung as they died. Words like hope, freedom, love repeated across broadcasts. Concepts the Xerilith considered evolutionary detours. Archivist Vakes came the voice of Overseer Thran, cold and mechanical. Progress report. I've decrypted a new cluster from the planet's east sector. Naval comm logs. But there is deviation. Thren's eyes narrowed to slits. Clarify. Vakes hesitated. In the final sequence, one human officer uploads a message. Fully knowing transmission beyond the atmosphere is impossible. He says, even in the dark, we remain. We die, but we leave echoes. We haunt. Thrin scoffed. Primitive dramatics. A species that clung to emotion like it was oxygen. Yes, Vakes replied slowly. And yet, the signal embedded a non-linear resonance. I believe it wasn't just metaphor. Something is embedded in the echo. Thrin turned away. Conclude your review. Then we wipe what's left. Emotion is infection. Let them rest in silence. But silence didn't come. That night cycle, as Vakes lay in neural stasis, he heard it. A voice. Not alien. Not code. Not even auditory. It was human. A woman, whispering. Not words, but a feeling. Regret. Grief. Fury. Held like a weapon behind the teeth. He sat upright in his pod, tendrils of cold sweat, an impossible biological response for his kind, trailing his skin. He stared at his own hands as if seeing them for the first time. They trembled. No, not possible. Xerilith don't tremble. They do not feel. The next day, the hallucination spread. One technician fell to the floor, clutching his head, weeping uncontrollably. Another had carved spirals into the wall of his chamber, muttering about eyes in the fire. Dreams came to many, all the same. Humans walking through the ruins, unburned, untouched, watching. Not one word, just watching. Vakes began isolating the source. The signal wasn't just audio. It was psychoreactive, laced with emotional frequencies embedded in the harmonic structure of the final transmission, like a virus designed to wake dormant receptors in minds unprepared for it. Humanity hadn't just spoken before they died. They had screamed their very being into the stars. Vakes delved deeper. Against protocol, he merged his neural core with the human captain's dying broadcast. The light in the chamber dimmed, then flared bright. He saw Earth, not the ruins, but the vibrant chaos it once was. Children running through polluted streets, lovers crying during bombings, a woman painting on the side of a collapsing church, a soldier placing a teddy bear beside the remains of a home. Then the captain, burned, breath ragged, eyes ablaze. If this message is all that's left, then let it haunt you. We felt. We chose to feel, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. That's the part you never understood. The transmission ended. When Vakes came to, his heart was pounding. His heart, the Xerilith heart, was designed for efficiency, not emotion. And yet now it ached. He stumbled into the main hall, eyes wild. They weren't a threat because of weapons or numbers. They were dangerous because they endured themselves. They forged meaning in suffering. Thren loomed over him. You are contaminated. Vakes nodded. Yes, and I think I'm beginning to understand. The overseer raised a hand, signaling for containment. But before the guards could move, the lights flickered. A whisper rippled through the air like a breeze made of memory. Then a sound, soft, melancholic, a human piano melody playing from the ship's walls. They hadn't just left data. They'd left themselves. The human effect had begun. Emotional contagion. The first thing Marin Locke did upon waking was scream. It wasn't a scream of panic. It was rage, pure and sharp as shattered glass. Her body thrashed against the cold restraints of the Xerilith medpod, muscles aching after years in cryostasis. Tubes tore from her veins. She fell to the floor, coughing, naked and defiant. Vakes watched from the corner of the room, unmoving. He had never seen a human alive, and certainly never one like this. Her hair was matted, her body trembling, but her eyes, those eyes burned, as if extinction hadn't been enough to smother the fire. "What year is it?" she croaked, voice raw. Vakes hesitated. By her calendar, the year would be 2478. She laughed. Bitter. "They actually did it, didn't they? You burned Earth." No answer. "I watched my planet die," she whispered, standing with a grunt. "My family, my friends, buried in ash while I slept. And you woke me up to watch the embers. We require observation of emotional response," Vakes said. She stepped closer, snarling. "You're here to study what you try to kill." Vakes didn't retreat. He was already infected, already dreaming of things he'd never lived, crying over people he never knew. "It wasn't all of us," he said softly. "Not anymore." Within hours of Marin's revival, the Velic then began to crack. The ship's AI, once a beacon of logic, glitched intermittently, quoting Shakespeare, singing lullabies in English, and humming that same piano melody no one could locate the source of. The medical wing's lights dimmed and pulsed with rhythm, mimicking a human heartbeat. One technician, attempting to analyze Marin's cortical patterns, suffered a neural collapse. When revived, he repeated the same phrase, "She carries ghosts." Marin, in the meantime, refused to scream again. She simply felt, deeply, unapologetically. She wept openly, stared out the viewport with red-rimmed eyes. She whispered names, those she'd lost. When Vakes asked if they were lovers, she laughed softly. "No, just people. We don't need blood to grieve. Just memories." Vakes sat with her daily. He stopped reporting to Thren. Something inside him needed to hear her stories. Of Earth's oceans and riots, her little brother's obsession with space, the smell of rain on pavement. Stories of beauty wrapped in chaos. And through it all, she never begged, never apologized for the mess that was humanity. Instead, she owned it. "She is destabilizing the vessel," Thren snapped during a council summon. "She is destabilizing us," Vakes replied. Thren slammed a clawed hand on the terminal. "Our minds are fracturing. Dreams, hallucinations, emotional bleed-through. If this continues, then maybe we finally feel." Vakes cut in. "You call them primitive, but they turned suffering into signal. They encoded defiance in death. They knew they'd lose, but they left meaning behind. How do we erase that?" Thren's gaze was stone. "You're compromised. I'm evolving." That evening, Vakes brought Marin an ancient Xerilith instrument, a harmonic coil. In the hands of his kind, it produced only structured tones. Marin picked it up, plucked its strings, and turned it into something else. Music. Not perfect, not clean, but it ached. And as she played, a technician entered the chamber unannounced, knelt, and began weeping. Then another, and another. Even Thren stood frozen in the doorway, hands trembling. Because they all heard it now, within the melody. Not vengeance, but grief. The unrelenting echo of a species that should have died screaming, but chose instead to sing. Later in the quiet, Vakes asked, "How did you survive it all?" Marin looked up. "We weren't meant to. We were fractured, selfish, violent. But we also created art. Love. We held each other as the world ended. That's what you don't understand. We never expected to win. We just didn't want to die quietly." He nodded. "You didn't." She tilted her head. "You feel it, don't you? The pull. The ache." "Yes." She leaned in. "That's the human effect. It doesn't kill you. It changes you." In the darkest part of the ship, the AI's core flickered. A child's voice, synthesized, not sourced, whispered into the static. "Daddy says monsters aren't real. But humans? We fight monsters." The infection was spreading, and no firewall could stop it. Containment breach. The Velic then was no longer silent. What had once been a pristine vessel of reason now pulsed with something ancient, something primal. The walls whispered. The air itself vibrated with fragments of laughter, weeping, and music that had never been programmed into the ship's systems. Marin Locke stood in the center of the observation chamber, back straight, head high, watching the stars. She had not tried to escape. She had not begged. She had waited. For what? Even she wasn't sure. A chance. A signal. An opening. Maybe just a moment where someone would finally listen. That someone was Vakes. He entered quietly, his steps slower now, heavier. His eyes were rimmed in purple, fatigue, emotion, or both. In his hands, he held a concealed data key. "You go try and help me escape," Marin said without turning around. Vakes blinked. "How did you?" "I've seen it before," she murmured. "The look in your eyes. The moment something breaks inside, and you realize you've been living wrong your entire life." He handed her the key. "There's an encrypted relay station on Deck 6. Hidden. Unauthorized. You can reach out if there's anyone left to hear you." She took the key gently. "Why are you doing this?" Vakes looked away. "Because I used to think emotion was contamination. That fear was weakness. Now I realize it was insulation. You felt everything, and still moved forward." A pause. Marin reached out and touched his hand. "That's called courage." The breach happened less than an hour later. Containment teams stormed the observation wing, too late. Marin was gone. Guards found only the data key's decoy shell and walls scrawled with human words in Zerlith plasma ink. "We remember." Security feeds failed. Door locks glitched. The ship's internal map reorganized itself, rerouting guards into loops. Hallways pulsed with red emergency lights, though no alarm had been triggered. And then, from the core AI chamber, a soft voice filled every corridor. "You are not alone. Not anymore." Vakes ran. He knew the council would trace it back to him. There was no undoing the choice now. His thoughts spiraled as the ship trembled. He passed officers sobbing in corners, some curled into fetal positions, whispering human lullabies. One technician had drawn a picture of Earth, based only on the dream of it. The infection was not physical. It was spiritual, a contagious idea wrapped in emotion, that something could be worth dying for even if it couldn't be won. Meanwhile, in the relay station, Marin linked the key into the console. The interface hissed, blinked, and opened to deep space frequencies. She typed with shaking fingers. "Human vessel, this is Lieutenant Marin Locke, Earth Defense Corps. If you can hear me, we are not alone. The Zerlith are changing. We might have a chance. Please respond." Static. Then silence. Then a reply. Rough. Distorted. But unmistakable. "Marin, is that really you?" She covered her mouth, breath breaking. "We thought you were gone," the voice continued. "We're hiding out beyond the Helix Nebula. 20 ships left. Maybe less. But if you're alive, if you've gotten inside, then maybe it's not over." Her fingers hovered over the reply. "It's not," she typed. "They can feel now. That's the breach. That's our weapon." Thrin called an emergency session. Half the council did not attend. Some had locked themselves in meditation chambers, repeating the same mantra. Others had torn their ceremonial garments, walking the halls barefoot, dazed by dreams. "We are unraveling," Thrin spat. "No," Vakes answered. "We are becoming." Thrin snarled. "Their disease. Chaos wrapped in poetry. We cleanse. We do not feel. You don't get to decide what's worthy of existence just because you're afraid of pain. You're speaking like them. I'm speaking like someone who has lived." Suddenly, across the council chamber walls, a memory flickered. A projection, not from a ship, from a human signal. A young girl, standing in front of a ruined city, holding a recording device. She spoke. "We're not ghosts. We're the ones who wouldn't die quiet. If this message finds you, it means we left something behind. It means we mattered." The image faded. Thrin trembled. And for the first time, the overseer of order looked afraid. Marin met Vakes in the docking corridor, where a small shuttle hummed with stolen access codes. "They're coming," he said. "Then we go faster," she answered, climbing aboard. As the hatch sealed and the stars filled the viewport, Vakes turned to her. "Your fleet, do you think they'll trust me?" They'll feel you, she said. That's enough. In the dark corners of space, across fractured ships and fading colonies, the human signal spread like wildfire, carried not by code, but by pain, memory, and song. A new war had begun, not of weapons, but of meaning, echoes of the unbroken. The stars were no longer quiet. Where once there had been sterile silence and endless void, there were now voices, millions of fragments scattered like ashes into the galaxy. Human signals, rising from the ruins, carried on a tide of music, memory, and pain. The message was clear. We are still here. Marin Locke stood on the bridge of the stolen Zerolith shuttle, staring at the faint outline of the human fleet in the distance. Ragged, half alive, scattered like ghosts, but alive. Her fingers trembled at the sight. Beside her, Vakes watched in silence. The human fleet's ships were primitive by Zerolith standards, burned and patched, held together by desperation. But they shined, not with power, but with something his people had never truly understood. Hope. Signal them, Marin said, voice low. Let them know we're not here to fight. Vakes hesitated. They may not believe me. Then I'll make them feel it. The response came slowly. A wall of targeting locks, warnings, demands. Then a voice broke through, worn, tired, and unmistakably human. Identify yourself. Marin stepped forward. Lieutenant Marin Locke, Earth Defense Corps, survivor of the Stasis Vault at Outpost EOS. A pause. That's not possible. I know, she said, but I'm here, and I didn't come alone. Silence stretched long, uncertain. Then came the reply. Dock at Station Point Omega. Any deception, and you're dead before your second breath. Marin looked to Vakes. He nodded. Fair. When the airlock opened, guns met them. But what struck Marin more than the weapons was the look in the soldiers' eyes. Fear laced with disbelief. Brittle trust held together by a thread. Behind them, the crew watched her like they were staring at a myth made flesh. A child peeked from behind an engineer's coat. She smiled, and the tension broke just a little. In the command bay, Admiral Rios stared down Marin like a man too tired to mourn again. You brought one of them into our last stronghold. I brought the one who listened. Rios turned his eyes to Vakes. You understand what they did to us? Vakes didn't flinch. I do. I feel it. Every day. Every time I hear your songs. Every time I dream. You dream? Yes, Vakes said softly. Of fire. Of oceans. Of people holding hands while the sky fell. Your ghosts live inside me now. I didn't ask for it, but I won't run from it. The room went silent. It wasn't enough. It was never words that convinced humans. It was proof. So Marin gave it. She uploaded the signal. The one they carried from Earth's final hour. The one laced with poetry and piano and tears. The one that haunted the Zerolith. The chamber filled with a single voice. We die, but we leave echoes. Rios listened, and slowly, he lowered his weapon. Then let the echo become thunder, he said. In the weeks that followed, the humans and defected Zerolith began something no one had dared name aloud. Resistance. Not through brute force. Through transmission. They seeded the galaxy with raw emotion. Music laced with grief, art that bled sorrow, images of lost children and dancing lovers and burning cities. They hacked into Zerolith command nets and played lullabies through warship speakers. An infection spread. Some Zerolith officers went silent mid-command and never returned. Some tore out their neural inhibitors. Others simply wept, unsure why. The war wasn't being won on battlefields. It was being won within. Thren watched it all from the shattered bridge of the Velikthyn, now abandoned and drifting. The ship that once symbolized order had become a tomb of voices. Every console whispered things he could no longer silence. He clawed at his head, pacing. They were supposed to die, he muttered. Emotion is weakness. It's entropy. But even he didn't believe it anymore. Because every time he closed his eyes, he saw them. Children running through rain, soldiers singing through tears, mothers holding dying sons and still smiling. They had died screaming, but not silently. And now he screamed too. One cycle later, in a distant star system, A single Zerolith ship defected mid-combat. Its captain sent a final message to the Council. No threat, no demand, just one line. I have felt them, and I am not unmade. Back aboard the human flagship, Marin stood at a viewport once more. But this time, she didn't look at ruins. She looked at signals, thousands of them, drifting, singing, pulsing like stars being born. Vake stepped beside her. Do you think they'll ever forgive us? She shook her head. I don't think they have to. I think all we can do is remember and keep feeling a beat. Then she whispered, that's how ghosts become ancestors. And in the silence of space, the echoes carried on. Unbroken, unforgotten, human.